Imagine you're a shepherd, and you come across the remains of your lunch of bread and cheese that you abandoned a few weeks before. Both are covered in blue-green mold. You've had a long day, so you're pretty hungry. Would you eat this moldy cheese? If you are brave enough to try it, you may just have discovered blue cheese. Hey there, cheese historians! I'm Julia, and this is Cheese History, a channel all about the origins, history, and impact of cheese. There are so many different types of blue cheese, from soft, creamy blues that are basically spreadable, to hard, crumbly blues that pack an intense cheese flavour. There's Stilton, Roquefort,
Gorgonzola, Formida Amber, Cheesemonger, Castello, Shropshire Blue, Chimney Station Blue, Bleu de Bonneval, Dana Blue, Cavrales, Roqueforti Blue, Wensleydale Blue, Maytag Blue, Chiriboga Blue, Blueberry, Cheddar Blue, Ardilost, Ora, Lanark Blue, Moretti Bay Blue, Basayo, Castello Blue, Meredith Blue, and the list goes on.
But the origin story for blue cheese always seems to be the same. So in this quick video, I thought I would give you my thoughts on the origin story of blue cheese. There are several variations on the story of how the mold that makes blue cheese was discovered. They all basically follow a pattern. A shepherd is out in the hills minding sheep. He has with him his lunch of cheese and bread. Then one of two things happens. Either he sees bandits in the distance, or a pretty girl. Either way, he abandons his lunch in a cave or under a rock and flees from the bandits or goes after the girl. Later he returns, only to find that his lunch of bread and cheese has gone mouldy. He's not entirely deterred by the mold on the cheese, so he eats it, discovering a tasty blue cheese in the process. I have so many questions about this story. Why would the shepherd abandon his lunch upon seeing the bandits or a pretty girl? How big was his lunch that he couldn't take it with him, but hid it under a rock or in a cave instead? Somehow he is so hungry he will eat mouldy cheese, but not hungry enough to take his lunch with him in the first place. Also, it takes at least a couple of days for bread to go mouldy, so it must take at least a few more for that mold to appear on the cheese. So how many days did he wait before coming back for his lunch? The most important question though is, what made the cheese go mouldy? Blue cheeses get their distinctive blue-green patches and streaks thanks to a particular mold. Well, technically it's a fungus, and it's called Penicillium roqueforti. It's related to the mold that gives us penicillin, but it's not the same mold. Traditionally, this mold is cultivated on dry rye bread left in caves where blue cheese is aged. After about a month, there's enough mold growing on the bread that it can be powdered and added to cheese. The fact that the bread is used to cultivate blue molds raises a question. Does Penicillium roqueforti come from the cave where the bread is left, or somewhere else? Basically, where did the mold that grew on the first blue cheese come from? Because blue cheeses are often aged in caves, it's a straightforward assumption to make that Penicillium roqueforti comes from the caves themselves. And I came across this claim numerous times while researching this. However, a recent study on Penicillium roqueforti challenges this assumption. Old French texts suggest that the blue mold colonized the cheese from within, which would indicate that the milk or curd was contaminated. French cheese producers began to inoculate cheeses with P. roqueforti spores from mouldy rye bread at the end of the 19th century. The mold developed from the inside of the bread after 1 to 5 months in the Roquefort caves. Surveys of the microorganisms present in their caves and our unsuccessful attempts to obtain samples from a maturing cellar suggest that P. roqueforti spores did not originate from the caves, which were nevertheless crucial due to the ideal conditions provided for P. roqueforti development. The study's authors go on to conclude that Penicillium roqueforti could have contaminated cheese either from being present in rye bread or the rye flour it was made from, or from hay given to animals during milking, as many species of Penicillium mold like to live in plants rather than in caves. These conclusions match the experience of a New Zealand cheese company, Whitestone Cheese, who went searching for a unique strand of Penicillium roqueforti to make a uniquely New Zealand blue cheese. Following the legend, they looked in caves for about 6 months but had no luck. Instead, a new strain turned up in a bale of oats and hay from a farm in the South Island and made a really nice blue cheese. So it looks like blue cheese mold doesn't originate in caves but contaminated the milk or curds while they were being processed. The caves then provided the perfect environment for the mold to thrive and spread throughout the cheese. When the mold is cultivated using bread, there is already plenty of cheese in the caves, so it makes sense that the mold spores would transfer from cheese to bread. So, how likely is it that blue cheese molds were discovered by a shepherd forgetting his lunch for several days and coming back to find mold had grown on his cheese? I don't think there's any truth in this claim. Instead, the discovery of blue cheese was probably much more mundane. Someone made some cheese that got contaminated with Penicillium roqueforti, either during milking or cheese making. It was put in a cave to age because caves make really great cheese aging environments. A few months later, the blue mold had taken over from the inside out. Someone still had to be bold or desperate enough to eat it though, and we can be glad that they did, because without them, we wouldn't have the range of blue cheese that we have today. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a like and subscribe for more cheese history videos. You can also follow me on Instagram and support the research that goes on behind these episodes over on Patreon. A huge thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. You are all awesome. And that's all for this time on Cheese History.